Hello ladies, gents, and everyones. It is Thursday, March 18th, and we're here to talk about this week's space and astronomy news. Let's start out with SpaceX. So Elon Musk tweeted on Tuesday that SN11, which is the next planned test flight for the Starship rocket, is almost ready to launch, although he hasn't given a date yet for when this can be expected. The FAA has looked into the SN10 mishap report and decided that there was nothing in it that indicated SN11 couldn't go ahead, which is great news because FAA approval has been an issue for Starship in the past. A static test fire hasn't been done yet, so we're really not, a day or so away, but hopefully the mission will be soon. SN10 was super exciting, so I cannot wait to see how SN11 goes. SpaceX also broke its own record this weekend by launching a booster that had been used for a record 9th time. The booster was successfully landed and reclaimed, which means that it could potentially be used for a 10th time, which is especially exciting because 10 times is the initial lifetime that SpaceX projected for the Falcon 9 boosters. So having an actual booster that has launched 10 times will give them a lot more information about the realism of that lifetime. And in fact, it's probably going to be able to be used many more times than 10, but this will be great data for them to get. So I told you back in February that the ISS finally completed this upgrade to all of the batteries that they use with their solar arrays. Well, now all those old batteries had to go somewhere, and the original plan was to dispose of them as normal, but due to some issues with launch scheduling, that didn't happen. And so instead, the pallet of batteries was jettisoned from the station and will burn up in the atmosphere over the next 2 to 4 years. This is actually the most massive thing that has ever been jettisoned from the ISS. It's pretty huge, and it's kind of crazy to think that it's just floating around up there for a couple years. But it will burn up with no dangers. They don't think that it will be in danger of collision with any other space objects, but of course it will be tracked by the US Space Command to make sure. Also, those cracks on the ISS that I mentioned before were repaired. However, testing after the cracks were repaired showed that there was still some air leaking due to the pressure dropping within the module. This pressure drop is not dangerous and it's not significant, but it does indicate that there are further leaks and cracks on the ISS. And this is just another sign of the fact that it's getting old. We love the ISS, but it is getting old, and just aging metal is starting to stress and crack. Speaking of aging things in space, things haven't been all that great for Hubble the last week or so. So a software error with the Hubble Space Telescope caused it to enter a safe mode on March 7th. And during safe mode, the door for the aperture should close automatically to protect the very sensitive instruments that are inside. However, this didn't happen, and so NASA did some troubleshooting and they discovered that the primary motor that operates that door is no longer functioning. They tested the backup motor and it is working fine, so they have now switched that backup motor to be the primary motor, so in future safe modes, the door should close automatically as expected. But again, this is just unfortunately more signs of aging on the Hubble. The Hubble has been in space since 1990, which is already double its initial planned lifetime of 15 years, and its last servicing mission was in 2009, and it's not planned to be serviced again. Following the safe mode shutdown and restart, the Hubble was placed back into science operations last Thursday. However, there was still one instrument that wasn't operating correctly due to a low voltage, but after investigation, they were able to bring that instrument, which was the WIFC-3, back online on Saturday. So the Hubble is now again fully operational for science, which is great news. We hope Hubble will continue to give us as much great science as it can as it continues to age gracefully up there. The Hubble successor, the JWST, is expected to be launched this Halloween. We are looking forward to that quite a lot. A little bit farther from home, astronomers have just announced the detection of a kind of strange supermassive black hole. So supermassive black holes are these enormous objects that are found at the center of galaxies. We're talking millions to billions times as massive as our sun. But in a paper published this week, a team of astronomers announced that they have detected a nearby supermassive black hole that is moving relative to its host galaxy. So that is, they measured the velocity of the black hole and the velocity of the galaxy, and they don't match up. Also, I just want to note that they measure the velocity of a supermassive black hole by measuring something called an HTO megamaser, which is that's just cool. Basically, something has disturbed this galaxy and caused its black hole to get out of sync. They don't know what yet. It could have been a galaxy merger, or binary black holes, or a recoil from a gravitational wave event. So, a very cool and unexpected finding for this supermassive black hole. Lastly, you may have heard of a very interesting object called Umeamea. Now, this object was discovered back in 2017, and it was the first confirmed interstellar object in the solar system. It passed through the solar system and is long gone now. There was a lot of really interesting and rather puzzling things about this object, including, for example, its really strange shape, which was either a very long cigar-like shape or a very flat pancake-like shape, both of which are not really seen very often in asteroids in our own solar system. And the most puzzling thing about Kamehameha was its non-gravitational acceleration as it left the solar system. Aliens! Okay, no, it probably wasn't aliens. As cool as that would be, the non-gravitational acceleration was actually consistent with something that we do see naturally occurring, which is basically the point on an asteroid or comet that's closest to the sun can kind of boil off and create this natural jet as these gases leave the object and propel it away from the sun. And this is what happened with Kamehameha. But the reason that it's so strange is that we didn't observe any of this ejecta like we normally would with a comet in our own system. Still, doesn't have to be aliens. Last year, scientists proposed a hypothesis that it could have be explained if the object was made primarily of hydrogen ice. And now, in a paper that was just announced, another team of astronomers have said that the object also could be explained if it was created by or composed of nitrogen ice. Nitrogen ice is very shiny, so the object would have a very large albedo, which means that it would reflect a lot of light. And the way that nitrogen ice kind of melts and sublimates as it travels through space would explain the kind of strange shape of the object, and it would explain the non-gravitational acceleration as well as why we didn't observe it. Now, there are bodies with a lot of nitrogen ice in our own system, such as the surface of Pluto. And so these astronomers are basically hypothesizing that a small piece of an exo-Pluto, so a Pluto-like body in another system, could have been struck by an object, which happens all the time, and that piece of the surface could have been knocked off, sent careening through space, and eventually interacted or traveled through our own system. So it's a very interesting hypothesis. I think it's a pretty cool idea, this little exo-Pluto fragment traveling through our system. In any case, Kamehameha is a really, really interesting object. It's super exciting to discover, and no, not aliens. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you'll come back next week. Have a good one. Bye.